Hi, my name is Keisha Briscoe, and today I'm going to be talking about the crack epidemic and its effect on the African American community. Now, first I want to start off and ask a question. How many of you know what this is? This is cocaine, and this is a powdered substance made from extracting the leaves of a coca plant. A coca plant is a plant that comes from the highlands in South America. And this is a coca plant. Okay. Cocaine for years has been glorified as a high-end drug, a luxury drug, or a drug for rich people. Think Hollywood, think rock and roll, think Studio 54, think supermodels, or, the entertainment industry as a whole has always and still is associated or linked to drugs. The most popular drug of them all being cocaine. Now, this is crack cocaine. And crack cocaine is a fast-acting, highly addictive version of the powdered cocaine. And it's made by cooking the powdered form of the drug. And because it can be made and sold inexpensively, and it produces a potent high, crack quickly became popular after its introduction into the United States in the mid-1980s. The interesting thing about crack cocaine is that the resulting high only lasts for 5 to 10 minutes, compared to as long as 30 minutes for snorting cocaine. So that means that crack smokers have to smoke repeatedly to remain high. And this powerful substance, these little rocks, this crack cocaine, was one of the most devastating blows to ever hit the African American community. During the late 1980s, it ran rampant through inner city neighborhoods. The crack epidemic of the 1980s left an indelible mark on the socioeconomic status of the African American community. Now, crack cocaine is made by dissolving the powdered cocaine in water, and you're adding baking soda and you heat the drug. And because the drug is extremely addictive and the high that comes from taking the drug is so short-lived, it quickly generated a large following of users wishing to purchase at high rates of frequency. As a result, the profits for selling crack cocaine surpassed that of any other drug. Now, how crack cocaine made its way into the inner city neighborhoods is unknown. However, there are many speculations that there are secret ties between the widespread of crack cocaine and the CIA. On August 18, 1996, the San Jose Mercury News published the first installment of a 3-part series of articles concerning crack cocaine, the CIA, and the Nicaraguan Contra Army. In fact, these groundbreaking reports suggested that drug profits were used to fund the CIA-backed Nicaraguan Contra Army in the late 1980s. Apparently, this Nicaraguan Contra Army was also called the Nicaraguan Democratic Force, and it was a large anti-communist community that the United States backed. And apparently, the Sandinista government, which was a Cuban-supported socialist party, had overthrown a U.S.-backed dictator, Anastasio Somoza, in 1979. So a war ensued, and the profits that were made from this crack epidemic was used to support the war, according to the Mercury News. Now, although these documents can be disputed, what we do know is that crack cocaine first began to be used on a large scale in Los Angeles in 1984. And the distribution and the use of the drug exploded that very same year. And by the end of 1996, crack cocaine was available in 28 states and in the District of Columbia. According to the 1985 to 1986 National Narcotics Intelligence Consumers Committee report, crack was available in New Orleans, Philadelphia, New York City, Houston, San Diego, Boston, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Detroit, Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Louis, Atlanta, Oakland, Kansas City, Miami, New York, San Francisco, Albany, Buffalo, and Dallas. Now, although this epidemic had numerous effects on the African American community, we are only going to discuss 3 today. And the first effect we are going to discuss is violence and youth homicide. Now, staggering statistics show that the presence of crack cocaine is highly related to the increase in violence and youth homicide rates. This graph, supplied by Roland Fryer of Harvard University, shows a huge increase in African American homicide rates from 1985 through 1995. Between the mid-1980s and the early 1990s, the black youth homicide rate tripled. And you can see that right here. This pink line right here represent black males between the ages of 18 through 24. And you can see in 1985 where the black murder rate was, and then you see it steadily increasing, and it reached its peak in about 1994, and then it started to decline right at the end of the crack epidemic. Now, the murder rate soared because of warring gang fights over turfs. You have robberies, the cash and connections needed for gangs to buy Uzi guns and AK-47 rifles and other assault weapons that will fuel these daily gang turf wars and these drive-by shootings and these murders and these robberies. All of this was supported by the crack epidemic, the profits from selling crack cocaine. Okay? The second effect of the crack epidemic was the decimation of the African American family. Now, I know that's a fairly powerful statement, but the homicide rates, extensive drug addiction, incarceration, and imprisonment left many African American families destroyed. During this period, the black community also experienced an increase in fetal death rates, low birth weight babies, and the number of children in foster care dramatically increased. And you can see that right here. The number of children in foster care. You have this pink line represents Caucasian children in foster care, and this blue line represents African American children in foster care. And you can see where in 1985, you can see that the rates start to increase, peaked at about 1991, stayed about the same, and then it started to decline in 1995, right at the tail end of the crack cocaine epidemic. You have this graph also supplied by Roland Fryer of Harvard University. This shows the black male homicide rates by age. Okay? You can see the highest rates were ages 18 through 24. And you can see 1985, it kind of was at its lowest. And then it steadily started to increase, peaked at about 1994. Then it started to decrease, right at the tail end of the crack epidemic. Okay, the increase in weapons and drug arrests also added to the destructions of African American families. By 1996, approximately 60% of inmates incarcerated in the United States were sentenced on drug charges. The last effect I am going to discuss today are the economic implications of the crack epidemic. Although there is no statistical or concrete data that correlates the crack cocaine epidemic with the economic instability of African Americans during that time, but you must think critically and you must think logically. Any drug addiction, especially a highly addictive drug such as crack cocaine, will have a domino effect in one's life. including their social life, their family, their career, their job, their education, and ultimately their financial status. Many African Americans during this time were unemployed and living day to day. And as with any hard, addictive drug, the basic necessities such as shelter, food, and clothes were at that time considered luxuries to them. Their addiction was a necessity. As long as they were feeding their addiction, nothing else mattered. To sum this up, the basic reason for the rise of the crack cocaine was an economical one. And while the Nicaraguan War, which fueled this crack epidemic, is barely a memory today, African Americans are still dealing with its lingering effects. Urban neighborhoods are coping with the host of homeless crack addicts and robberies. Hundreds of thousands of young black men are serving long prison sentences for selling cocaine, a drug that was virtually unobtainable in black neighborhoods. When you think of African American history, one would never want to think of something so painful as the crack epidemic, because it affected so many people. This epidemic swept through African American communities, turning playgrounds into war zones, destroying thousands of families and making minced meat, out of good men. This era made such a deep impression that unfortunately, the crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s is one of the fabrics of the African American history. I hope you were informed today. Thank you, and have a good one.